All right, so today we're diving deep, like really deep, into the world of the Anunnaki.
Ancient Sumerian myths, and some seriously wild theories. We're going through all this stuff you sent over too. Articles, notes. Should be fun.
There's a lot here. Ancient tablets, galactic wars, even some stuff about human origins. It's a lot to unpack. But for anyone who's totally new to all this, who exactly are the Anunnaki?
Well, they show up in Sumerian mythology, which is one of the oldest civilizations. They were considered really powerful beings, like more than just gods, and they supposedly came down to Earth from somewhere else.
They came from a place called Nibiru,
Yeah,
right?
exactly, Nibiru.
That's a whole other rabbit hole we could go down. But okay, so they came to Earth. You're saying for a specific reason.
It gets really interesting here. They were supposedly looking for resources, gold specifically, and that was around 450,000 years ago.
Gold. Seriously, why gold? What could they have needed that for? I mean, some of the theories you sent were wild.
That's a good question. It really makes you think, what could they have possibly needed so much gold for?
Maybe it had something to do with their planet, like they needed it to, I don't know, repair their atmosphere or something. Or maybe fuel their technology.
Yeah, or something we haven't even thought of yet. It really is fascinating though, right? How this element gold plays such a huge part in all these ancient stories.
It's true. It's like a cosmic treasure hunt.
Mm.
But, okay, how do we even know any of this? You mentioned ancient tablets earlier. What are those exactly?
Well, there's one called the Enuma Elish. It basically lays out a lot of the Anunnaki story. It describes this huge cataclysmic event involving a planet 6 times the size of Earth, which is where some people think the Anunnaki might be from.
Wait, a planet 6 times the size of Earth. Okay, then.
And get this whole idea of gods coming down to Earth, it pops up in cultures all over the world, not just Sumeria.
So it's like this universal story echoing through history.
It really is. I mean, look at the Emerald Tablet, for instance. Totally different origin, but it's got that same theme.
Okay, so it sounds like we're talking about something much bigger than just, like, a bunch of ancient stories. You're saying these texts could point to powerful beings who actually shaped our world, maybe even played a role in how humans came to be.
Exactly. And that brings us to one of the most interesting parts of all this. How did the Anunnaki supposedly create humans, and why?
Okay, now we're getting to the good stuff. I knew it wouldn't be long before we got to creation myths, but before we go there, who else was involved in all of this?
Well, there's another group we haven't talked about yet, the Igigi. Think of them like a workforce created by the Anunnaki to, do the heavy lifting.
So the Igigis were kind of like the Anunnaki's, what, employees?
In a way, yeah.
Oh.
They did a lot of the hard labor, mining, construction. And their story is actually really important, especially when you consider those cataclysmic events we talked about earlier. Things weren't exactly peachy for them. Like, imagine being told to mine for gold after a planet 6 times the size of Earth just messed up your whole reality.
Okay, yeah, I can see why they might have been a little disgruntled. You said their story was important.
It all comes down to the Igigi rebellion.
They rebelled. I mean, I guess it makes sense, right? Overworked, facing some kind of planetary crisis. What did they do?
Well, think about it. The Anunnaki needed workers. And what happens when your workforce decides they've had enough?
They have to find a new workforce.
Bingo. And some researchers think that's where humans come in.
Wait, hold on. You're saying the Anunnaki created humans because the Igigi revolted, instead of just, maybe easing up a little.
It's a theory, and a pretty compelling one when you look at some interpretations of the texts. But the fate of the Igigi after that, it's kind of murky.
That's a good point. It's like all we get is this brief glimpse into this whole cosmic labor dispute.
Right. But it makes you think about how power dynamics like that repeat themselves over and over again, even here on Earth, even just between humans.
Oh, absolutely. Power struggles are, like, the oldest story in the book. Which reminds me, we've got to talk about Enki and Enlil. Those two are supposedly calling the shots.
You got it. Enki and Enlil, the brothers. And let me tell you, they were pretty different.
How so? Give me the ancient Sumerian gossip.
Well, Enki was all about wisdom and creation. He actually seemed to really care about humans, saw potential in them.
Okay, so he's the sensitive one, breaking the mold a little. What about Enlil?
Enlil was. Let's just say he was more about keeping things running smoothly. Humans were a means to an end. They were there to help the Anunnaki, that's all.
So basically we had Mr. Nice Guy and Mr. Practical. Did those two ever agree on anything?
Not always, that's for sure. And there are different views on humanity. Let's just say that caused some friction.
I bet it did. Did those disagreements ever amount to anything?
Well, Enki went behind his brother's back and shared knowledge with humans. Some say he even revealed the whole truth about how humans were created.
Wait a minute, doesn't that sound kind of familiar? Like, isn't that basically the story of the Garden of Eden?
You got it. Forbidden knowledge, a serpent tempting Eve.
Yeah.
What if Enki was, like, the original rule breaker?
And that article you sent about the Sumerian tree of life talk about themes repeating themselves. It really makes you wonder if these stories were just their way of explaining something bigger, something they didn't have the words for.
It's a thought, isn't it? Especially when you start factoring in stuff like galactic wars and weapons of unimaginable power.
Okay, yes. The stuff about the Brahma Astra blew my mind. Wars across galaxies, weapons that could destroy planets. That's straight out of science fiction.
Right. But those references are definitely there, especially when you start looking into this thing called the Tablet of Destiny.
Yeah, the Tablet of Destiny. That was one of my biggest questions after going through all this stuff. What do we actually know about it?
It's one of those mysterious parts of all this.
Yeah.
Supposedly some kind of, I don't know, artifact,
Yeah.
maybe even a weapon itself. And whoever had it had the power to control the Brahma Astra, which means...
Which means they were basically unstoppable.
Exactly. Controlling the fate of entire worlds.
It's almost too much to even imagine. But where did humans fit into all of this? Were we just stuck in the middle of some epic cosmic battle?
That's the big question, isn't it? And some theories suggest that when Enki created humans, he may have given us something special, something that's been hidden inside us all along.
Like what? You're going to have to elaborate on that.
Think of it like potential, something built into our very being that could allow us to become even greater than the Anunnaki themselves.
All right, so we've talked about ancient Sumerian tablets, rebellions, even weapons that could wipe out planets. It's a lot to take in. But the biggest question is, where do we go from here? What does this all mean, especially all this stuff you've dug up?
Right. We've gone way beyond just myths at this point. How does this connect to us, to our reality? That's the real head scratcher.
For sure. And you know, one thing that really got me thinking was that article you sent about our DNA. Like, scientists are discovering all this new stuff about it all the time, and we still don't fully understand it, do we?
Absolutely not. And it makes you wonder, what if those stories about the Anunnaki, their technology, all of it, what if that was just their way of explaining something they didn't have the language for?
It's like, imagine trying to explain genetic engineering to someone living 5,000 years ago.
Exactly. It would probably sound like magic.
Yeah.
So maybe what they saw as this advanced technology was actually something else, something we're just starting to grasp now.
Okay, so instead of thinking spaceships and laser beams, maybe we're talking about the evolution of consciousness itself, or how the brain works.
Now you're getting it. Maybe what Enki gave us wasn't just the ability to think, but to think on a whole other level, a level that could even surpass the Anunnaki.
Wow. So how do we unlock that? Is there like a secret code hidden somewhere, a way to activate that potential?
Well, the sources talk about a time of awakening for humanity. But maybe that's not something that just happens to us. Maybe it's something we make happen.
So we don't just wait around hoping the Anunnaki will come back and, I don't know, give us the instruction manual.
Right. Every scientific discovery we make, every piece of art we create, even simple acts of kindness, maybe those are all part of the process.
Wow. It's like we're not just waiting for the future to happen. We're building it right now.
That's the idea. And that's what makes these ancient stories so powerful, even today. They remind us that we have the potential to be so much more. We just have to tap into it.
That is a lot to process. Well, a huge thank you to you for sharing your expertise with us. And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the world of the Anunnaki. It's been quite a ride.
It really has. Who knows, maybe one day we'll look back at these myths and realize they weren't so mythical after all.
Until next time, keep asking those big questions and keep exploring those curious corners of the universe. And remember, the most amazing discoveries are often the ones we make within ourselves. This has been The Deep Dive, and we'll catch you next time.